George Gunn Foundation is a place-based family foundation. There are 9 trustees, 7 of them are family members, and 2 are community members. The family is not local. They reside mostly on the coast, either the East Coast or West Coast, in the New York or Boston area or Northern California. We give out grants, formal grants. There are 3 formal trustee meetings during the year. That would be in February, in July, and in November. And and the deadlines for those grants are usually 3 months in advance. So we have time to review the grants, ask questions, have meetings. As a relatively new employee, I meet everybody, unless, of course, there's a grant from out of the state. But then I do a lot of phone conversations. But the vast prime majority of the grants specifically for arts are local. And we look at our operating budgets for organizations that really do work within Cleveland proper. We deal with 501c3s. We don't give out individual grants. There are plenty of organizations that are not 501c3s but have a fiscal sponsor. So in that way, we deal with a partnership between the grant seeker and the 501c3. So I have to really emphasize that the family really wants to make a substantial difference in the things that happen in Cleveland. And so we really focus our grant giving to not only organizations, but we also look at policies that would affect. So sometimes we work on a state or a national level. The sectors that we look at are arts, obviously, and I am the program officer. Bob Jaquay leads up, and he's probably been here once or twice, for the economic development and community revitalization. We have the environment, which is headed up by John Mitterholzer. Ann Mullen reviews the education grants, and Marcia Egbert reviews the human services grants. A lot of times, the disciplines are very, very fluid. I think I've attended meetings with all of my colleagues. Sometimes we review grants that are interdisciplinary. I think there was a potential grant seeker who met, and I think all the 5 sectors are touched by that one. So it's almost like hitting the lottery. So we'll see how that works out. Some of the recent projects that we've worked on are the public square, which we're all very eager. Everyone's been looking out of windows and taking pictures. The George Gunn Foundation lobby at the Ohio Theater. We work very much with the Cleveland Transformation Alliance through our education and even a little bit of arts. That's the organization for the Cleveland Plan for Transformation for the CMSD school system. Related to that also is the work that we've done with the high-quality preschool program in Cleveland, the Pre for Cleve. We work with environmental. It's very interesting because we work a lot on not only a state level with different organizations, but we really work on a local level with different organizations, but on a state and national level to affect environmental policy. So that's, it's very different in some ways because of arts, but because we're working on a national level with a lot of governmental organizations and national environmental agencies. And we do a lot of work with the Fund for Our Economic Future, which is alliance of funders to advance our economic growth through jobs readiness, jobs preparation, and access and creation of jobs. So many of these have been multi-year grants and relationships that we have because the work is very complex and takes years, if not decades, to have things come together. So we do have our regular grants that are reviewed by the trustees 3 times a year. And then we have a discretionary grant, which is anything up to $10,000. And a lot of times, organizations that are new to the Gunn Foundation or just plain new and sort of figuring out their way, that's kind of a great seed money. That's something that can come to us at any time of the year, and it takes 4 to 6 weeks for us to make a decision, in-house staff on those. But those are also very interesting grants to give because you have all kinds of really interesting ideas, and again, giving not only just that $10,000, but usually that also comes with advice of other people to talk to, other organizations to talk to, thoughts about, try to think 5 years out about your organization, or in some cases they are even established organizations that you have to look at founders and what's going to happen if you win the lottery and buy an island in the Pacific. What happens to your organization? Does it go away, or are you looking at what can happen in the future? So a lot of questions are coming up about how to serve communities in a very meaningful and holistic way, and that there's no traditional way of funding or sort of that perfect sweet spot organization, and money should always form to those. Sometimes you have to look under rocks to find organizations that might not be as well versed in how to get funds, and you see a lot of inequity in some cases. So I know within the arts community, equity is a very huge discussion point, and I went to the Grant Makers in the Arts conference last fall in October, and I'd say probably more than half of the topics really dealt with equity and looking at how philanthropy and philanthropic dollars can widen their lens to find organizations and fund them in meaningful ways, as opposed to making everyone move to a one-size-fits-all. The more established organizations are really looking to stay relevant in how to incorporate the next generation of patrons. And the new organizations are looking for everything. They're looking for patrons, they're looking for collaborations. It's just fascinating. I always think that funding arts organizations is really small business development. If you take away the excellence, and everyone is excellent, if you take the artistic excellence away, organizations are looking to get to the next level, whatever that level might be. So a lot of the questions that we have really have to do with organizational, how they are thinking, how thorough. And that's one thing I think that was very surprising to me, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but the thought process that arts organizations, in terms of how to expand, how to make that different step, that next step, how to focus their programming to meet what the community's needs are, is incredibly well thought out. One thing that I've noticed with younger organizations and with our millennials is there's a lot of collaboration. They're really looking at, they're almost born with this nature of collaborating. So you see organizations that are 1 or 2 years old that are working with other organizations in order to, whether it's just back of office things, whether it is an artistic collaboration. So I see a lot of the younger organizations, actually age-wise of the organization, not the management, that really start off the block looking for collaboration that I think in some ways will help artistically, but also just managing and fund-wise. And I've seen some organizations, more of the performing arts organizations, that are looking at especially going out of state, or downstate or upstate for private funding, going to maybe a corporate event and performing. So, and it's interesting that a lot of that is actually not in Cleveland. They're going outside where folks are not necessarily familiar with the Cleveland art scene, and having a revenue stream, doing a pretty good revenue stream that brings that money back and helps them do sort of the more experimental and nonprofit activities that they do here. Look at the rejuvenation, the renaissance of Cleveland, and you can't have that conversation without including our very vibrant art scene. And I think it's something that is unique. We have not only, like some cities where they have a relatively new art scene, they might have a theater program that is 20 years old, and it's great, but it's 20 years old. We have a vibrant theater complex that goes back, centuries, if you will. And we have centennial, we have organizations that are celebrating or have been in the process of celebrating their centennial, and we have organizations that just popped up in 2015, and everyone is running at full pace.